This Detroit News Podcast is brought to you by Varsity Ford of Ann Arbor.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Gritiron Gang, a Detroit News Lions podcast. The Detroit Lions beat the Cincinnati Bengals 37-24. The Lions defense intercepted Bengals quarterback Jake Browning 3 times. This game was almost never in doubt, but the Bengals made it a little bit interesting at the end. The Lions, though, are 4-1 and headed off to Kansas City for a primetime matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Define interesting.
Things happened. I mean, it was like 61 points on the board.
No, I mean, this was a pretty good dismantling for 3 quarters, 28-3, 3 interceptions, lots of boos from the home crowd here, although the home crowd was very Honolulu blue.
Yes, it was.
Splashed here today. This was a pretty workmanlike beat an inferior opponent until it wasn't, like you said.
You mentioned the boos. I think it was 7 minutes in is all it took.
I
leaned over to you. I was like, hey, it's always good. That's a good sign when the home team is booing 7 minutes in. It was pretty commanding, I would say. I think that's how I would describe it. And to the defensive's credit, they give up, I think it was, 21 points in the fourth quarter. Actually, Browning had a perfect passer rating in the fourth quarter. He was like 10 for 12 for like 130 yards and a couple touchdowns. To their credit, it was after 1, DJ Reed being out, 2, Rock Yassin going down with what appeared to be some cramps because he was in and out of the lineup. Right. And at one point, they had Trey Flowers, who was signed to not the active roster, but the practice squad on Wednesday and just elevated from the practice squad for this game. So, I think
Terrion also.
Terrion as well. Thank you.
Right.
Terrion as well with the shoulder. So you're down to your 5th cornerback on the outside at that point. So
who looked like he was just, as you pointed out, I think, looked like he was just trying to figure out where he's supposed to be lining up out there at the end. No, they gave up some big plays. That's concerning. And Meek got beat deep by Jamar Chase, which lots of people are going to get beat by Jamar Chase.
Sure.
Browning did look better. He looked terrible. I mean, he just looked like he was forcing things, which he was. And there's that big sign up in the stands there, "Get well soon, Joey B." That's the bottom line here is they're not. That's
a plea, by the way. That's not a.
I mean, to be honest, it kind of I feel bad for Jake Browning. That's sort of like snarky. It feels like, but I mean, that's the bottom line. This team's not going anywhere with Jake Browning as their quarterback. But that said, the defense, we've talked about this for a while now, like forcing turnovers. Mm-hmm. That's the sort of the next step in their evolution, and they did it today. Now, granted, one was an arm punt and whatever, but like they were getting the ball up, they were playing really well, and you like to see that from this team, especially with what's coming ahead.
100%. And I think that's the only reason why the finish is a little bit concerning, I guess you could say, is because we don't really know what the situation is going to be next week. We don't know if Terrion Arnold is going to be back. I will say in the last 6 regular season games, Terrion Arnold has left a game with an injury, did not return, and then started the next game. So, who knows whether or not he's going to be ready for Kansas City. But, that is a team that has struggled this season, but still does have Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. And he's not going to be doing the same thing that Jake Browning was today in terms of the, when the pressure gets to him, he's not just going to throw it up and let Kirby Joseph catch it. There was the interception to start the third quarter. It went right to Alex Anzalone. Almost looked like he was the intended receiver. So definitely
at the end of that play, by the way, so Jamar Chase knocks Anzalone out of bounds. And at that point, and I think they mentioned this, he was the leading receiver at that point for them with 3 catches. He was also their leading tackler with 3 tackles. That's what kind of day it was for them. But yes, to your point.
No, I was going about to.
Yeah, we'll move on to Montgomery. David Montgomery has returned to Cincinnati. He has a passing touchdown. He has a rushing touchdown. I think he had, let me check here, 18 carries, 65 yards, long of 19, and then the 8-yard score. Big homecoming game for him. I know you talked to him after the game. What did you hear from him?
Yeah, his second most productive game in terms of yards this year. He talked about that. Yeah, the game did mean a lot for him, not only for the homecoming, but also the fact that for those watching the broadcast, you saw it was the first time that he played in front of his sister, Kiki, since she got into a car accident that left her paralyzed. So she was in attendance. The camera was on her a bunch. I know the broadcast showed pregame that he was able to see her on the field and stuff, and he thanked the Bengals for making that happen, for getting her on the field. But yeah, no, the passing touchdown, and then he later gets the rushing score. Jared said afterwards that they really wanted him to score. The team did. They said even after the passing touchdown, they were like, that. Let's figure out a way to get him one of his own.
Yeah, a really cool performance from him. And he's not the only one who had a big homecoming today. Derek Barnes from Covington, Kentucky, which is the city that's right across the river here from Cincinnati. He had a big sack for a safety at the end of the game. Cool moment for him. He said he had 100 friends and family at the game. More Barnes jerseys than he's used to seeing in a.
He did put out a plea
stadium
for the fans in Detroit to maybe buy some more 55 jerseys. They really should because he's playing the way he's playing.
And they invested in him, So if you're going to get at least 3 years out of that jersey,
fans should invest in him as well. No, look, that linebacker we talked about last couple games. Linebacker core really does seem to be the sort of the anchor for this group. They're all out there most of the game, which is a little different than last year. All 3 of those linebackers, and they're all making plays in different ways at different times. Punching the ball. I mean, again, it's where the turnovers seem to be starting to is. Campbell almost had another one today. We're punching the ball out, and Anzalone with the interception. They really can be difference makers, and they're starting to do that on a weekly basis.
Offensively, didn't have the best start. Going to the locker room, up 14-3 at halftime.
They had a pretty good start on their first drive.
Sure. They had a good start on their first drive. They did score on their first drive.
It was going to be, oh my gosh, this game is going to be a complete walkover. And it wasn't.
Amik Robertson has the interception early in the second quarter. They had another touchdown off of that. But that was a 17-play drive, and it's only 2 touchdowns. And I felt like I was taking crazy pills a little bit. The Lions are playing an NFL football team who are not just going to lie down. They're going to fight at least a little bit. But people in my mentions were mad. I don't know if you guys were experiencing the same thing, but I got a lot of this team will never do X because they Y. This team's going to find a way to lose this game. Hey, guys, you have a really good football team. They've won 31 of their last 39 regular season games. They're not all going to be 40-point blowouts, even if you think they're going against a team that's not very good like the Bengals haven't been. But and I actually do owe you all an apology. Maybe I set the expectations. I said it was going to be 52-7. It felt like 52-7
that way,
for most of that game. Like not in score, but in feel, certainly.
Yeah. It was certainly trending that way, whatever it was at some point. The Lions went up 4 scores at 28-3, I think was the score after Montgomery's rushing touchdown. But I think it was pretty complete by the offense. Maybe we can talk about the offensive line and Gio in a second. But Jared, it was weird. I do the grades after the game, and it didn't feel like Jared didn't make any throws that were particularly tight window throws or deep down the field throws. But it's almost like he didn't have to. He went 19 for 23 and had 3 touchdowns. It's like in the past 2 seasons, it feels like the 10th time that he's had a marginally close difference between his incompletions and his touchdowns in a single game. I think I saw someone on Twitter said that whenever somebody throws more touchdowns than incompletions, you should just call it a Jared Goff at this point because he's done it 3 times over the last 2 seasons.
For 44 years, Varsity Ford in Ann Arbor has been more than just a dealership. We're a family, proudly serving yours. As one of the top volume Ford dealers in the world, we're proof that when you treat people right, they come back, generation after generation. And now we make it easier than ever with complimentary pickup and delivery for both sales and service. So you can buy or service your Ford without leaving home. Varsity Ford, driven by family, built on tradition.
Shall we touch on Manu a little bit?
Yeah, Giovanni Manu ended up making his first NFL start today. Taylor Decker, sounds like they're a little bit concerned about what might be with that shoulder injury long-term. Campbell saying after the game he can't really commit to whether or not Decker is going to play next week, but it was one of those things where, Decker hasn't practiced, I don't think, at all this season.
Yeah, right.
And there's this worry, every time he was still managing to play every game until today, but then the recovery wasn't quite matching the ailment, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I asked Campbell about the level of concern there, and he said essentially what it is we're saving him now to save us later. Is essentially the strength. It just wasn't where he wanted it. They wanted it. He wanted it to be going into a game, and left unsaid, I think, is the part about, it's the Bengals. We can probably get by without Decker today in some ways, but mostly he's just got to be to the point where he feels he's strong enough to do his job out there, and he, each week takes a little more out of him so far this season. And so now it remains to be seen if he's going to play in Kansas City.
Now, here's what I will say about Giovanni Manu. He was the culprit for 3 sacks that they gave up. But at the end of the day, Jared Goff, 19 for 23, not the, 258 yards. He wasn't under fire all game. He had a couple really bad reps, but ultimately, he wasn't noticeable on every play out there. You talked to him in the locker room after the game. What'd you have to hear?
Yeah, I thought down to down, it was probably, from what we saw last year, and then even in some training camp this year, we thought like it might have been like, oh man, this might be really bad. I think down to down, it was okay outside of the few splash plays that he was on the wrong end of. He talked about that on Monday that Hank Fraley said to the team, to the offensive line room, that look, Decker was trending the wrong way, and then Manu said he kind of did the math in his head himself. He's like, okay, Skipper's dealing with something. Who else would be? Oh, me. Like it's probably going to be me. And then he said on Tuesday, then Hank called them and told them, yeah, like it is probably going to be you, assuming Decker can't go. And he's not that it's been different, because you mentioned that Decker has been missing time this year in practice, but repping with the ones, repping next to Mahogany, said that it was kind of, I guess, during the week, kind of the emotions weren't crazy during the week, but pregame he said warming up, doing his warm-ups, knowing that this was going to be his first career start, is when the emotions did kind of hit him a little bit. I mean, this guy was playing football at the University of British Columbia 2 years ago, basically. Mm-hmm. So it is crazy that he made this start, and like you said, wrong end of a couple sacks, a few sacks, but perhaps promising a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we knew it wasn't going to be perfect. Like we've seen it in training camp.
But I would say that's the wrong position
for sure
to be that.
To have 3 mistakes.
Yeah.
That and cornerback, probably.
Jared Goff is the franchise, the season, the Super Bowl. I mean, so I don't know that they can afford to send Gio back out there next week. And it felt to me like Dan Campbell's not sure of that either coming out of this game with some of his comments there. I thought like it depends on Skipper's how ready he is to step in there, I think. And then obviously they made a roster move to add some more depth there this week. So we'll see, you've got a veteran there that they brought in that maybe is ready after another week. I don't know. That's the concern going forward, is you can't have Jared. I mean, Jared Goff hadn't been sacked, the last 3 games? He got sacked 4 times today. Yeah, that's not going to work.
Right. Like if this was in a vacuum, just evaluating Giovanni Manu, okay. If this is a preseason game, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's not training camp.
It's the regular season now.
Preseason. This is this is it.
And they have 2 big games coming up. The Chiefs are no joke. The Buccaneers put another fantastic game today. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. Real quick before we get out of here, I just want to shout out Jack Fox. 5 punts today, longest 64, 4 of them pinned inside the 10-yard line. And that really swung the game.
It did.
And, early on, we talk about the complimentary football all the time. And, turnovers turning into 14 points and a 13-point win. That's huge. But it's the small stuff, too. There was an Aiden Hutchinson safety that got wiped off the board early in the game. But the only reason why they were backed up to their own end zone in the first place was because Isaac Tisla drew a holding penalty on the return. That put the Bengals at the 5. Then the defense capitalized on the play, ultimately wiped off the board. But I digress. And that's just an example of how things have been clicking for this team in all 3 phases.
Dan Campbell passing up a field goal to punt today, too, or passing up going for it on 4th down there at midfield to punt because of the way Fox and that special teams was playing, and because Jake Browning was on the other side. And, if he's going to do that from his own end zone, we'll take it.
Right. I was just going to bring that up when people talk about Dan Gamble. Yeah. They talk about that he almost can't control the aggression, but I think this was an example of him controlling that aggression, understanding that it's a Jake Browning offense on the other side, and you pin them inside their own 10. Well, you said 4 times, then I think it was inside the 5 twice. Cincinnati's starting field position was the 20.3-yard line, and that's in a world where touchbacks come out to the 35. Right. So that's pretty amazing from Fox.
I'm on St. Brown, 8 catches, 100 yards today. Passed Brashad Perriman for 4th all-time in the Lions receiving list. This is a stat, a milestone, that when I first started covering the Lions with Justin Rogers.
Brett Perriman.
What did I say?
Brashad. That era didn't go quite as well as
Brett Perriman. Brett Perriman. My bad.
That's why I looked at my phone all the time.
Brett Perriman. I apologize to the Perriman family. that is a milestone that when
Yeah.
I first started covering the Lions, I started covering the game days with Justin Rogers in 2018. And whenever those milestones would occur, we would have to write about it. It would be its own story.
Right,
Lions,
right, yeah.
Lions, I'm on our
No.
Brown Cross. That was just like the 38th most important thing that happened in the
that.
game. Yeah, if
No
that.
offense to him on Ross
And
Brown.
it's just kind of crazy. You know, like I talked at the top of the show here about how, you know, things can get a little tense in a football game. You start saying some things, you start worrying about some things, but like just every game, when I look at those post-game notes, I'm just reminded of how truly insane and unprecedented this team is from 1 to 53.
Right. And we should point out before we leave, they're now tied for the best record in the NFC.
Yes, they are. One
So
seed is very
all of
much
that
on the
angst,
table.
All of that angst a month ago, and they were sitting at 0-1 in Green Bay, and everybody's worried about the coordinators and this and that. Yeah, they're right where they should be.
Lions also have 94 points through 5 games. That is a franchise record.
Again,
So, offense is
to your
fine.
point. Yeah.
Despite what people are saying about today. I mean, Jared Goff, like we said, 19 for 23, extremely efficient. Run game, would have liked to see it be a little better, but I mean, you know, we're splitting hairs here, folks. All right. Anything else before we get out of here? Let's get out of here. Thank you so much for listening. Check out DetroitNews.com. Catch all our post-game coverage. A big game coming up this week. Make sure you subscribe to DetroitNews.com to read all of our coverage ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs showdown, as well as the Gritiron Gang podcast. We'll have a fresh episode waiting for you when you wake up on Thursday morning.
Why am I sitting down so low?
I don't know. It's awkward in here. Yeah. See ya.